dollar gold standard and floated their two currencies. And that was the beginning of the modern financial regime which we saw in the 70s. The volatility, the high inflation rates were a time of market deregulation, reflecting the dismantling of the Bretton Woods to a large extent. And to that extent, however, Bretton Woods did provide some stability and growth, because if you look at the growth between 49 and 59 in the United States, it was something like 562%. All across the Northern Europe and USA, 49 to 59 was the most productive times of all our times, any times. And mostly for Bretton Woods. It allowed us to sort of really gain on the war dividend from World War II, which is still what we are sort of spending today, are those war dividends that our grandfathers did for us. And today, Bretton Woods is, it's more a political body, because IMF and the only two existing institutions, IMF and World Bank, are very political, and there's all sorts of political issues. But Bretton Woods is pretty much dead otherwise. It died in 70, 71.
And what happened in 70, 71 that was of significance?
Well, the Deutschmark and the yen. That's basically what broke the back of Bretton Woods.
And
Is that either had to sell dollars or buy dollars to raise or lower your currency's value, but the dollar was changing with its inflation rate, which had nothing to do with the inflation rates in Germany and Japan. That was causing them to hoard a lot of dollars, which were now falling quickly in value, and so their Deutschmark and yen was falling in value a lot. So they said, "Heck, no, we can't do this. We're going to get away from this," and that was the beginning of the end of Bretton Woods.
And we had,
But
and we had the oil crisis come into play in the mid 70s, and we had the baby boomers come of age at that point in time, and we had super high hyperinflation of as high as 17, 18, 19%. When I came into financial planning in 1982, we could have assumed interest rates on our life insurance illustrations of 12%, which I got to tell you makes a life insurance illustration look mighty tasty, accumulating tax-free.
Oh, wait. Hey, Dick.
Yes.
In 1980-81, you could get 30-year Treasury bonds at 23%.
Yes.
That's when they started including callable bonds. Just when Volcker came in, they were at 23%. 17% was the CPI rate. And the money market rates were around 18, 19%.
We had bond funds that were returning 30% a year.
Yeah, exactly. The markets, I mean, it's got nothing to do with Jimmy Carter. It's got nothing, and Reagan to a little bit. It was just the opening of the markets around the world.
So this is,
and there's nothing anyone could have done. Just like this one, this crisis. It's beyond any party or something. It's about a whole nation. This crisis of 2008 is just as big as 1933. There's no mistaking that. Right now, it's not anymore a recession or a great recession. This is a depression. We don't know whether we are going into growth or recession after 2 years when we said that the bottom has happened. So under these conditions, for example, for the planners, how do you counsel clients? If they have retirement fund savings, or buying a house, or children's education, anything that requires them to save, what do you do? Where do you put them?
good question. Money skills are a 21st century survival skill.
Yeah, really. So some real stuff going on here, right? Big stuff, and it's very big.
You're far away from your microphone occasionally. Having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, no, I'm done. Thank you.
Well, thank you. But let me just, and before we get to more virulent discussion, it's my belief that the financial planning profession came into being in response to some of these extraordinary pressures that were being asserted at this point in time of the late 60s, early 70s. Financial planning came into being in 1969, And the rules of the CFP mark really came into being in 1970. And for many intents and purposes, they haven't changed since then. So if you want to know where some of these things came from, they came from the world of financial product circa 1970. And you're seeing some revisit of those kinds of issues. So, it's an exciting, changing world that we're facing, and some of these concepts that we're studying are very much underscored with the times. And I question the accuracy of some of the issues that are being brought out in the book. I didn't even know about overconfidence bias until about 3 weeks ago. I hadn't run into it. I'd run into the notion that people sold their winners and kept their losers, kind of a thing. But I don't know. I think we have a lot to learn, and you guys are on the cutting edge in very many respects. So, Colin, you've been talking a bit here in the written side of things. Some thoughts?
Well, yeah, on that last comment, I was just going to say, yeah, I think they're calling it disposition effect. If I'm not, I might be mistaken on that, but part of the overconfidence, where you sell your winners and hang on to your losers, and of course, in the long run, that's no good. And I've caught myself doing that as well. So that's one from personal experience that I've unfortunately got a little experience with.
Hurts, don't it?
Yeah. It's in fact, I've got some out there. I think I've got to sell here, as this is pointed out. So, I don't know. I was just throwing some comments in there about MLPs and REITs. These are some of the high risk, high. They call them dividends, but of course they're not really assured. They're certainly not guaranteed. But I mean, you can't even typically get those paying, 23%. That was referred to by Psalm there. Of course, when
that was
inflation,
a unique period. That was a unique period in American history. It didn't last very long.
Right.
But it was something while it was lasting.
Would have been nice to lock those kind of rates in somehow, huh?
Yeah, I'm afraid that doesn't happen a lot. So what, where do we go with some of this? Where do people go for thinking about how they're going to provide for themselves when they're no longer generating earned income? Which is really what all this is about.